they would have been better off just stabilizing the injury, not getting out the big old machete, getting out the axe. I think if I saw that girl charging at me after I'd got my leg caught somewhere, I'd be going, put it down, we're gonna plan B. Hey, I'm Bear Grylls and I'm back again to review some classic survival movies and see how viable they really are. So this clip is from the film Those Who Wish Me Dead. These guys trying to survive a forest fire. I think first thing that jumps out is that forest fires are incredibly dangerous, incredibly powerful. These guys are really in a high danger zone. Forest fires can reach over 1500 degrees, so that is a crazy heat. One thing they're doing maybe a little wrong on this in the sense, even though, listen, they're in literally the heat at the moment, but they're running directly away from the fire. You know, if you're running downwind, you're never going to be able to outrun it. You really should be trying to run across the fire to get out of the path of the forest fire. They're doing it right in the sense they're going downhill. You know, the heat is always going to be wanting to go up. The other good thing about going downhill is that you stand the best chance of finding a stream, and a stream's obviously going to lead to a river or a lake or a pond. That's going to be one of your best ways of staying safe.
Listen to me. Take a deep breath, hold it, and lay back. Watch what I do.
The reason people often die is a lack of oxygen. You know, there's only so long people can stay underwater. You know, fire sucks oxygen out of the environment. So that is one of the real dangers for these guys. I think that's probably pretty unrealistic. The reality is, you know, A, you're not going to be able to hold your breath for long under that water. Every time you come up, if you're in the heat of the fire, there's going to be no oxygen. The heat's going to be overwhelming, and ultimately you're unlikely to survive that. In the classic film, The Revenant, this guy has to cauterize a wound, a big net wound, with gunpowder. So obviously Leo is in a tricky spot at this point. He's got an open neck wound. Obviously there is a lot of blood flow in your neck. If this was on his hand or on a leg, there'd be an argument just to stabilize it and do compression on it. The amount of blood loss he would experience with a neck wound, you're into the territory of like, cauterizing with gunpowder isn't really great, but it might be the least worst option at this stage. If you're going to die anyway, you're going to get to the stage of trying anything. What would have been the reality is that most people with that sort of wound would be dying anyway. So cauterizing probably works some of the time, and that's probably why they did it. But it's a true in extremis option. Gunpowder is going to create super hot. It's going to seal off those arterial and venal bleeding, and then you've got to keep that wound clean and try and protect it. But as we know from this one, he's already in a bad situation. He's into the reserve tank, and it just might save his life. Yeah, I would give him a good chance, actually. Above all, what he does have is courage, fighting spirit, and a never give up kind of, come on, we're going to do this. So in the game of survival, that is king. In this scene from The Shallows, she's been bitten by a shark. She's trying to deal with the wound as best she can. What she's trying to prevent is massive blood loss from that shark bite, which is right and which is smart. But she'd probably be better off, in truth, doing it mainly through compression. You know, she uses some jewelry to suture to sew it up, which is actually smart. I mean, I remember once in the military seeing one of our soldier eyes alongside. We were parachuting in North Africa at night. He landed on a rock, cut his leg really badly open, and I saw him just then and there, Rambo style, sew up that wound. But what he had that this lady didn't have is strong antibiotics then to be able to stop infection, because really in the wild it's infection, and historically it was infection that often kill people. I think the hard thing in this situation is going to be the pain level. You know, she's obviously doing it without anesthetic. To be able to do that yourself is hard. But again, you know, survival, the rewards that go in survival to those who can do the unimaginable and can overcome that pain and that fear barrier. She's obviously made of stern stuff. She's doing it. But there's also a power to adrenaline in disaster moments. And if you can harness that and use that, for most people, adrenaline becomes overwhelming and they panic. That's why it becomes so frantic. But if you can harness that adrenaline to allow you to overcome the pain and act quickly, that adrenaline can really help her in this moment. In this clip from Yellowjackets, it gets ugly with some amputation on the cards. Yeah, so this is a pretty gruesome scene. You know, sometimes you've got to act fast in the heat of the moment, but you've got to make sure your actions are actually going to help the person rather than potentially kill them. I think just making a split-second decision to use the axe to cut off the person's leg is maybe jumping to some hasty conclusions. Really, they've done the hard work, which is getting the injured person out from under that wing. The leg's obviously broken, but once that leg and that person is away from the danger, really the focus wants to be on just stabilizing them, potentially resetting that leg, and then protecting it. You know, just hacking into it is going to create huge open wounds and opens up a whole can of worms, often literally. You know, if these guys haven't got antibiotics, you're going to get septic probably out there pretty fast, and blood sepsis kills very fast. So hacking with an axe wouldn't be number one on the agenda. If though, you can't get the body out from underneath and you've got another threat coming along and you've got no option apart from hacking off a leg. If you had to do it where you want a tourniquet first, then you need to cut. Then you've got to get through bone, which is harder than it sounds, often involves initially breaking the bone before then cutting through it. And then you've still got a massive, especially with a leg, massive open wound. Really, without proper equipment and antibiotics is kind of almost a death sentence. But you know, again, you're in an extreme situation. If you got to do it, you got to do it. But really looking at this clip, they would have been better off just stabilizing the injury, keeping the person calm, keeping fluids going into them, not getting out the big old machete, getting out the axe. TV show The Wilds, and one of these girls gets stuck in quicksand.
What the fuck is taking me down? Here. Rachel, calm down.
Quicksand is obviously dangerous. People often wonder if it actually exists, of which the answer is yes. I've been caught in quicksand a few times. So it is very hard to recognize when you're often approaching this stuff. I've had it many times actually where I've been walking, it looks like really solid, and then suddenly I've just disappeared.
Get off! Get off! I'm making it work! Help me!
The number one rule of quicksand is turn around and get out of the way where you know solid ground is behind you, the way you went in. Second golden rule is not to panic. You know, the more you panic, the more your limbs get pulled down. And what happens then, you get fatigued. And then once you run out of energy, you know, you're often really then sunk into it. And that's where people start breathing in the water and obviously die. So like with so much in survival, number one, don't panic, keep calm, turn around, go back out the way you came, and don't fight it.
Listen to me, you have to stop. Fighting.
Try and get a limb, one at a time, legs, arms, onto the surface, spread your weight, wriggle a bit like a seal, but never fight it. You know, sometimes you just get caught in this stuff, but the key is staying calm, knowing your routines, knowing your protocols of how to get out of there. And if you're with a buddy, get them a rope, get that under them to give them some leverage to get their body up. And then use that to help, again, spread your weight as you move forward. But like so much of the wild and so much of survival, you've got to be resourceful and also calm in the big moments. This clip is from The Mountain Between Us, where Kate Winslet goes through the ice of a frozen lake. So frozen lakes are obviously incredibly dangerous in the wild. Many people still every year fall through ice you know, then you're in a real genuine life survival situation. As you see with Kate when she goes in, that immediate gasp and panic. And they actually call it the gasp reflex, where just in that moment of adrenaline and fear and overwhelming, you breathe in and water goes into your lungs and then you go under. So first thing to do is just, again, like with so much to survival, staying calm. It's trying to stay calm. Easier said than done when it's happened and you're not expecting it. But trying to stay calm, not gasping, not breathing in water, and then turning around and trying to get out of the ice the same way you went in. A bit like with the quicksand, the only place you know where it's going to be stable enough is where you've just come from. Then you want to wriggle like a seal, try and get out, spread your weight, get onto the ice and stay low center of gravity all the way until you're back onto either properly solid ice or back to the shore. The thing that's going to kill you quickly, fastest, once you're out though, is the exposure. You know, you're wet and you're in sub-zero temperatures and you don't last long without dry clothes. So then you've got to act fast whilst you've still got that 5 minutes of adrenaline or so to get the wet clothes off you, roll in the powder snow that will absorb a lot of the water off you, try and get a fire going. If you can't get a fire, wring out all your clothes and get moving and get the blood flowing fast and try and get somewhere where you can get a fire going or you can get to safety. It's why really whenever you're near frozen lakes and you're having to cross them, you want to do all you can to avoid having to go out onto the ice. Always make sure you're with a buddy. Don't assume. You know, in the wild when you assume, as you know, it makes an ass out of you and me. Don't just think ice is going to be strong enough for you. It can be really genuinely life-threatening, and I've been through the ice of many frozen lakes. Yeah, not fun and potentially very dangerous. But she was lucky in the sense that she had Idris there who could help her out, and it worked out. You've got to look at these clips and go, what is the alternative? The alternative is giving up and you're definitely going to die. You know, these are worst case scenarios, and I think that they're doing anything, whatever it takes. It might not be perfect. There might be better techniques with time that people learn, but ultimately they're in that moment and they're doing whatever they can. And that is the heart of survival, a do or die and never give up or try anything. I'm not letting this beat me. That survivor mindset that you're going to have to be resourceful, you're going to have to be smart, you're going to have to be calm in the crisis, you're going to have to be determined and resilient. It's what separates those who make it from those that often don't. And in that sense, these guys, they've got it.